just looking for that.
This is really a nice place for a retirement center.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us at our second community forum regarding the use of remaining funds from the two buildings. Certainly. It is on. Can you hear me better now? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the second of two community forums regarding the use of remaining funds from the building of two schools, Apple Valley and Summit View. So before we begin, I'd like everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully we'll get a lot of additional comments that most of you can share with us your perspective. But first we have Dr. Finch. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
All right. We will go right into the discussion items, the options for the remaining fund balances. What I would like everyone to do is stand, if you would like to speak, please go up to the podium and get in line. Okay. Given how many people are here, I will try not to limit everyone. So please be courteous and considerate of the next person who might want to speak, but we won't place a limit on it for right now unless it gets too long. And at the start of your speaking, if you would indicate which of the options on the sheet that you have received, hopefully all of you have seen it, which of the options you prefer or like best. And this is not a scientific poll, we realize that. This is just to give us some ideas of where some individuals may stand on this issue. So with that being said, one last thing, if you would identify yourself when you start speaking, that would be helpful to us. All right. You're up, sir.
Thank you very much. My name's Peter Orth. I have several children in the West Valley School District. Appreciate your having this open community forum for people to speak about this large amount of money. My choice would be option one, and it's for two reasons. One is that is, I think, a moral obligation that the school board would have to return money that they asked for but did not spend. Especially $19 million. And then the second reason is I think it's important to retain the credibility of the school board that when you go to the voters on a vote and ask for a tremendous amount of money from the taxpayers and you collect too much, that you give it back so that the next time you ask for money, people can trust that it's going to be spent appropriately, that you're asking for the right amount and you're not asking for too much to fund other projects that are not on the bond measure. So I think that's important for the school board credibility for future bond asks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we begin with the next person, one little change that we made to the list, maybe simplified things on the options. The last forum, there were 5 options. This time we consolidated options 2 and 3 together just to simply say, return some money, use some money for other projects. We didn't specify the amount, but that just makes the option a little bit easier to identify. So there are basically 4 options there. One is to defease all of the money or return all of the money to the taxpayer. The second option would be to use some of the funds for remaining building projects and return some. The third option would be to use all of it for some of the capital projects that need to be done. And the fifth option would be whatever you decide we should consider that isn't on this list. Okay, please continue to the next person.
My name is Hassan Tahar. Before I start with which option is, I did have the chance to watch the video and watch every board member, what did they say. Basically, the options here is the way how I think about it is the bond was really voted for building 2 schools. I completely agree with Mr. Mike Thorner that the bond was to build 2 schools. We did build 2 schools. And you did give a credit for Thorner, for Chevronel, did a great job, they really did a great job. And I was a member of the Bond Oversight Committee. Also, we did also a great job since the options for the value engineering. So we did save some money there. So what I wanted to say, basically not to change really the narrative. The narrative very simple. The bond to build 2 schools. We did build 2 schools. Whatever left over should go back to the voters. That's the way how it should be. I do understand there are some needs, and we should really take care of those needs, but there are other options in front of the boards. They could go for another levy or whatever options you want to do. But let's please not change the narrative. The bond was for 2 schools, we built it, the leftover should go back. So at least the community will have the trust in the board for next time you ask for. Other schools actually needs to be built also. In the future, that's gonna be another bond. So when the high school was built, there was leftover money, and that money was given to the sports or the athletic, whatever it is. I don't think the community had any input on that. So I believe I trust Mr. Thorner here. He's the lawyer. He can speak on that. Legally speaking, whether you can keep the money or not, that's another thing. I'm not going to speak to that. So that is the options I would like to see. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Next.
If he was on the committee. Hi,
Hi.
I was just curious. Sorry, Mary Jane Balt. How did this much of an over come about? I mean, construction costs are high, they're awful. How did this much of an overflow end up? Did you ask for too much money in the bond or in the levy? Did you not build something that you were going to build? How did this come about? That's my question. And if you were do you know why there was so much extra? They should be able to answer? Okay, if they don't answer, you don't agree with it, you let me know, okay? Okay. So how come there was so much extra?
It's really a collection of a lot of different factors. It's not one particular thing that caused us to have so much excess. The project came in under budget, number one.
Yay.
Okay, that's a big thing, that's plus. Costs in terms of what the contractor was actually projected to use and what actually was used, that was another savings. We did not have to shut the schools down, which was a big factor, and the other 2 schools, in order to build, that saved us quite a bit of money. The schools were able to continue, and they moved to another building so that the construction can continue at a faster pace than was originally projected. And then I think on top of all of that, just the time factor in order to complete the project, and there was money that was coming from the state to help us build this. All those things kind of combined together to really just give us an overage. Now, we did expect that we were going to have some money left over, but we did not predict that we would have this amount left over, which is what brought us here today. Did I say that well enough, guys?
Can I just ask one other thing too? We also got a very low bid. Chevronel gave us a bid that was not even close to what we had 2 bidders, Chevronel and another company from the west side. And Chevronel's bid was so much lower than the other side that it wasn't even a question.
So they're an East Side company?
Yes, they're from Tri-Cities. Kyle Clark is one of their main people, and he is a White Hollow and West Valley graduate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yes, you're in agreement with, okay. Okay, thank you. By the way, I'm for option 1. I think the money should be returned to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Flynn. Hello, good
Hi,
evening.
good evening.
I'm with option 1. The money needs to be returned to us. Since 2019 until now, with this planned pandemic, you had a choice. You could have kept the schools open or closed them. You closed them. It brought mental illness to our children. You had another option. You could have not masked our children. You masked them. You masked them at PE. You masked them wherever you to we the people.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask you, please, on subject, we are dealing with the excess funds at this
Yeah,
point. Okay,
those funds are
Okay.
connected to,
please.
those funds are connected. $9 million is connected to what?
I'm not sure what your question is here.
Okay, so funds is not just about the buildings. You got funds through federal funding, correct? $9 million came with, if you followed the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're talking about the excess bond funds here. I mean, the excess building funds, period. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to please stay on subject. We're not
Okay.
here to discuss the other.
My whole point is that you need to give it back to us.
Okay.
Because you guys do not do things correctly. You have not apologized for nothing. And you guys continue to just not protect our children whatsoever. And that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you for your comment. All right, do we have someone else who would like to speak?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
My name is Phil Dindia, and I think I may be proposing something that is quite a little different than what you've been expecting. But I think we can use this money and earn money from it at the same time. And I'm talking about climate work. When you build in Yakima, whether you build homes, whether you're building schools, whether you're building cars even for the police, we should have that in mind. How are we going to take advantage of this wonderful climate we have here? And my first proposal is that every single building in a school, on school property, should have solar heating. You can use that money to buy that. And eventually it's going to pay you back to the point where you almost are not paying any electricity at all in your schools. So I guess that's the first proposal that I would have. Secondly, that has to do with climate also. I go around and I live next to a school, and there's many other schools that I drive by every day, especially way out past the 70th. And there is no trees around there. There's buildings all over and a lot of spare space to put trees. We also should have that as a requirement for any building in the city or county. That heat is eventually going to kill people unless we have trees and shade that they can go to. If we don't do that, eventually the climate is going to kill a lot of people just because of heat. And that should go for building homes at the same time. So my proposal is that you use a lot of that money to earn more money and to take care of those who are going to school there and who live in this environment.
Thank you. If I understand you, are you suggesting, it sounds like option either 2 or 3 here. Is that correct?
That's right. I think that was right. Yes. I
Option
didn't know
2
which-
or 3?
I didn't know which one it was going to be. So
Option 2 would be to use a portion of the funds for projects such as you suggest and then return the rest to taxpayers. Or option 3 would be to use all of the money for those kinds of projects you're suggesting.
I think it's going to take all the money, but that is simply a pet project of mine. We need to do something much more drastic than just a little bit.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. Is there someone else who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Don Kirby. I've addressed the board before. A couple points of clarification. I think the contract was a general contractor construction management contract. Is that right? So really, the board should be commended. They, delivered a good project on both schools. The contractor was a very quality contractor. I deal with them quite often. And we're in a great situation, quite honestly. It's a great predicament to have a $19 million excess. I side with Mr. Thorner. I believe that option 1 should be returned. The excess should be returned to the community. I own numerous properties in West Valley, and I'm looking at my 22, 23 taxes, just like you folks probably are doing the same thing. And I'm up about 21% across the board just from those 2 years. And so I'm looking for relief selfishly, but also, if you look at your assessments, my assessment on, my properties are, 3.42% per thousand on my properties. And so it's a significant money that the district gets out of the assessments. Again, I'm looking for relief selfishly, I guess, maybe to a certain degree, but I agree with Mr. Thorner on option 1. And I think it's a moral thing that we return that back to the taxpayers so that we have credibility for the next time when the bond comes around.
Right, thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for having both of these board meetings. I spoke at the last one as well, and I brought a little bit more prepared notes than speaking off the cuff. October 4th, I made the point, 4 points about, sorry about that, Matthew Lindner. I made 4 points about the $19 million in overtaxation is what it comes down to. Coming in under budget and on time is a laudable accomplishment. The trust earned by responsible management is best retained by returning the funds to the voters. Retaining the trust of the voters is the best way to be successful on future bond issues. I voted for Apple Valley and Summit View bond, and I voted against the prior unsuccessful bond. So in addition to reaffirming those points, I'd like to discuss the education I gleaned in a conversation 2 weeks ago. After that meeting, it was explained to me that many, if not most of the items on the capital project task list are a result of spending on money on priorities other than maintenance. Typically, the advocates for novel education programs, music, and sports were better able to convince past board members to fund students' activities, their purposes in school, than those who advocated for maintenance. This led to a repeated deferral of maintenance issues, which dug the financial hole. I empathize with principals who have facilities problems, the maintenance manager trying to squeeze a dime out of a nickel, and even board members who may not have been present when some of these problems occurred. Most, but not all of these proposed expenditures on the list appear necessary, and even the ones that are less critical probably are only a few years away. However, third, this deficit developed through poor management and a lack of political will over time. I won't call it mismanagement, but poor management, because the board members who deferred maintenance sought to please constituencies who represented fractions of the student body rather than ensuring a solid foundation for all. If I understood the discussion correctly from 2 weeks ago, West Valley voters approved their levy in January of 2022 at $1.50 per thousand. Today, I went and I listened to the January 2022 KIT 1280 interview of Dr. Finch and President Strong. there was no mention of $13 million in deferred maintenance during that interview. It's my understanding that the levy rate could have been proposed at a higher level. Yet in that same conversation last week or 2 weeks ago, I was told the board takes pride in setting the levy as low as possible. Undoubtedly, the school board knew of most, if not all, of these deferred maintenance items. Yet in the interview, the levy was described and advertised as keep on keeping on. We're steady as she goes, okay? The levy was what the part that was insufficient. Fourth, the process of how something is achieved matters. To take money from a bond issue, which was allocated for a different specific purpose, it may be legal, but in my mind, it would be an unethical misappropriation of bond funds to cover a decade plus of poor board management of resources. If what I was told was accurate, and keep in mind, this is based on a conversation, right? The board and the superintendent need to own their responsibility for deferring maintenance until it achieved a critical level. The board needs to advocate for a higher operations and maintenance levy, even at the political cost of angering their constituents. Then they need to vigorously promote and defend that request to the voters. The budgeting process needs to be fixed in the schools and programs so that school district necessities are prioritized over wants. To reference Maslow's hierarchy, which we all learned somewhere going through school, physiological and safety needs come before belonging, accomplishment, and achieving potential. If anything, I'm more in favor of 100% defeasance today than I was 2 weeks ago. However, I am also in favor of an O&M levy being raised to cover the maintenance deficit as quickly as possible. Then the board, the superintendent, and the school district would be modeling for students and the constituents the ability to manage their way out of a self-created problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Nathan Craig. I've got students in West Valley. I went to West Valley. I live in West Valley. Mr. Strong, I watched the video of the last one. I couldn't make it. You said you would take questions. Is that still true?
Yes.
Okay. Number one, why are we here? You got 10 buildings in the community. Why do we do this stuff off-site? We
Well,
can't
it's-
use the we're talking about the auditorium needs chairs or something. We should be sitting in the auditorium so you can show us we need chairs.
Well, partly this is a matter of getting out more in the community. Most of our meetings are held on site. This is a
Right.
great opportunity to reach out to other locations. It's available to us, and we reach a segment of our community that we may not otherwise see if we held it at our location.
Of my opinion, I would prefer it to be in a school.
We have many meetings in
I
schools.
know. I go to the ones at the high school, but I mean, in a school, like when we did the facilities committee, we talked about Apple Valley and Summit View. We talked about how bad they were, but we were sitting in the conference room of the brand new high school. And finally I said, why don't we go have a meeting at Apple Valley? Why don't we go have a meeting at Summit View and we can see this stuff? So I just would prefer school meetings to be at school.
Okay, your point is noted.
Second question, I guess, since all of us voted for this bond, why didn't you just put it on the ballot for an advisory vote? Why didn't just have all the citizens in West? I know it costs money to put something on the ballot, but say, hey, we want to do these projects for X amount, or do you want your money back? It's still an advisory vote to the board, but it's an opportunity for you to actually get everyone who voted for this bond opinion rather than 40, 50 people here and however many were here 2 weeks ago. So just food for thought, an advisory vote would have been good. Third thing, what does it even look like to give the money back? Like, is that on the bond portion of my taxes will be reduced 43 cents per thousand? And then I don't understand. It's not, no one's getting a check. Are we correct here?
That's correct.
Everybody, you're not getting a refund. You're going to get a reduction in the bond portion of your taxes. And what is the overall amount of that bond?
So if you look at this sheet.
I see the sheet, but what is
Okay.
the dollar per thousand right now?
The savings or the amount per?
The amount right now.
The amount, it's No, it's $1.97. I thought it was a dollar. No, just for the, he's just talking about.
I just want to know for the
bond.
bond.
Just for Apple Valley, just Apple Valley, 80 cents is what we collect.
So the bond is 80 cents and you can give back 43 cents somehow in the first year down to 18?
Correct.
That's insane. It's more than half. And then I'll kind of maybe dovetail on that last speaker, but several of these things that are on this list, I think are important. I've been on I don't do the facilities committee anymore, but I did. 10, 15 years ago, we talked about the well at Mountain View. We talked about some of these pipes and these issues. Why are we not in a $75 million budget fixing these things? If a well is $250,000, why are we not doing that? Why are we waiting for money to fall out of the sky to do that project? Like, a lot of these things to me just seem like they should have fit in a budget long before we got to this point where we need to take this money. And so I would just ask, I guess, that you prioritize some of these things. And I looked at the list, and there's 4 things that are high priority, one of which does not have a dollar amount. So the 3 that have a dollar amount, that's $900,000 of high priority stuff that I guarantee goes back years. That should have been in a budget of this school district sometime in the last 10 years. Again, on the deferring maintenance, I see the $1 million for deferred maintenance. Why the hell are we deferring maintenance? We should be doing maintenance on these buildings. We cannot just let our buildings fall apart and then say, hey, we need new buildings. We need to be doing this maintenance. Now I'll get to the part that you actually want to know about, my opinion. That might have been my opinion also, but still, it was kind of questions. I think number one, that everything from the last meeting I saw, there were some issues at Summit View and at Apple Valley regarding maybe, I don't know, phone service, whatever it was. The users of those buildings, the staff, the students, whoever uses those buildings, I think first and foremost, you need to ask what else needs to be done to make this building efficient and the best that it can be. So my number one priority would be any extra money needs to be used on Summit View and Apple Valley to make sure they are 100% ready to go at all times. No, well, we wish we would have done this. You got, what did you say, 19 million? You got 19 million. Whatever you wish should have been done should be done. Let's make sure those schools are good to go for the next 20 plus years. Number two is, I assume you guys already know whether it's legal or not to take money that was put for these schools and use it on other schools. So my number two thing would be school safety. I think it's missing from this list. I know years ago I spent time with ESD 105, the sheriff's office, YPD, and we went to every school, and obviously some of them have changed since, but we looked at safety measures. Sheriff Winter at the time, he was ready to build Fort Knox at every school, I guarantee, and that probably wasn't going to fly, but I would prioritize school safety way over the color of the carpet. And I would also say that school safety does include wells and water pipes, parking lots, sidewalks for kids to stand on waiting for the bus, telephones. There better be a working telephone everywhere in the school. We know we need telephones, whether that's a cell phone or that's a phone hanging on the wall, whatever it happens to be. And I would say handrails on the bleachers. Those are safety things. But I also think safety means metal detectors. I think it means sheriff's deputies. I think it needs auto locking doors with alarms on them when a kid decides to open the door and let somebody in. Security cameras, fencing, all the stuff that you harden schools with. It's not the most popular thing, and probably some experts probably say you shouldn't. But as a parent in this school district, a school shooting scares me a hell of a lot more than whether or not the seats are good in the auditorium. So I think those things should be prioritized, as well as counseling, peer support, all the other ideas that go along with preventing those things. I think those should be implemented, but I think school safety should be a high priority in here. And like I said, I do think the pipes and the wells and all that is part of school safety. So a plan, and somewhere there probably is a plan that someone puts out on how to make schools safer. And I'd like to see that implemented. As far as the track and the football field, $8 million is too much. I can't buy that. That's how we got into this meeting was, the high school, I think the $48 million bond included all those athletic fields, just nobody knew it. And so once they got built, everybody got mad. Michael knows everybody got mad and nobody wanted to see any of that stuff. And so that's kind of why we're here. But I cannot support having a turf field. But as Mr. Jager said, if the track is unsafe or the field is unsafe, again, I said, spend the money on school safety. That's a safety item. So handrails, all the stuff that needs to be there, I would agree with. But any other money has to be earmarked for facilities. This can't go anywhere but facilities. I think, as the last gentleman said, you should add more money in your budget for facility maintenance, so we're not deferring maintenance. Should you, and this is your guys' choice, should you do these projects and take care of the business that you need to take care of with roofs and all the other issues, we should not be in this situation again in the future. We should never have this conversation again about what do we do with this money and then show me a list of problems that, frankly, when I look at that list and I think of the budget of the school district, I think, how can this not have been done? How can you not have spent $100,000 on a safety item when you got $75 million budget? It's insane to me. So I don't know what option I fall under, Mark. I'm going to give you one, though. I'm going to give you option 2. I'm going to say, take care of the business that needs to be taken care of to fix our schools, because these buildings need to last. I can't go $8 million on a football field. So defease that money or however you do that. But I think we need to take care. But if you come up with metal detectors and other safety items, spend it all. Because the other thing about a school shooting, if anyone watches the news, what do they do at the school? They close it. Talk about how much it costs to build a new school when we could prevent these things from happening with extra hardening of our schools. So, and maybe the solar panel guy might be onto something too. That's a future thing that could be done. But I'm gonna go option 2. But you could spend it all if it means my kids are safer at school. That's it.
Thank you. All right, next.
Hello, my name is Mark Anthony. I've been living in the West Valley School District for over 10 years. My little sister goes to the West Valley High School. And firstly, I just want to say thank you guys and God bless you guys for doing this when you don't have to be doing this. And I want to notice this from both sides and acknowledge it, because we have 2 problems, and granted, they're good problems. Some call it a gift, others call it a miscalculation. But regardless, the board needs to be transparent with what you choose to do with these funds. When I hear you guys drop these budget estimates and they're including multiple projects under one umbrella, it makes me think that you're leaving space for a slush fund, because it's not accurately describing every individual expense. And so I want to think that we're all men of our word and uphold what we say. And that doesn't mean we're dumb and we use our better judgment when opportunities like this present itself. So with that said, I respect your guys' job, but the sad truth is the dollar is losing its value. So we need, I think, and I vote for option 3 or 4, where we keep the money and we use it while we still have it at the value of its $19 million, rather than sitting on it or returning it and waiting on the rebate when the dollar could have pennies on the dollar versus what it's currently at. Now, we can have safety, infrastructure, education programs, new skills for students to focus on, new types of classes, rather than returning the funds and then waiting on the next bond, waiting on the next levy, waiting on the next round of funding. So this can include free student lunches. This can be increased security at the doors. This can be increased different segments of education, as in technology for students who are interested in the arts, students that are focused on new types of technology, as in computer jobs. So there's tons of different new work spaces in the workforce to this day that this money can begin preparing students for that workforce. There's financial literacy, entrepreneurship, business. These are practical, real world opportunities we can already have provided in these school districts, specifically the West Valley School District. And I also want to mention some concerns that my sister has told me, that there's really small things like locks in the girls' bathroom. They're broken, fix it. The sinks in the girls' bathroom, there's some that are broken, fix it. These are really minute things that don't cost a lot, that can easily be fixed. And while preparing kids for the future, the amount of funds, I'm not saying blow it all, because someone mentioned at the last couple of the other 2-week meeting, the forum, where even just keeping the funds accrues interest, and that forms interest for just revenue, for just keeping the funds. Invest it into the kids. Use it for safety and infrastructure, and yeah, you guys have the means to do so. So just be really transparent in what you choose to do with the funds, because that is what it comes down to when it comes to building community confidence. Because if you guys choose to go one route, say one thing, and then completely do something else, you're going to have a whole room of angry parents. And we're still mitigating. So I appreciate you guys doing this. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Next.
Hi there, my name's Alfredo Cervantes. Thank you for your time. I've been living in West Valley for 10 years plus. So I vote for option 4, but that's given that very particular conditions are met. I say this not because the board has the right to access these funds, but because of our dire microeconomic conditions that is causing our dollar to lose its value. So given this greater problem, which is at hand, it's beyond the perceived corruption of our prior poor decision-making that we must all stand united during these uncertain times. So we must look beyond our strongly held differences and realize that we can only maximize the benefit of our key stakeholders, which are the children. By spending these funds over time before our dollar and supply chain become increasingly unstable. So it's either we devote these funds to the children now or fail to provide them basic necessities when they need it. And that is the true situation we are in. It's that simple, so I ask that we all stay united with transparent systems that empower all of us to collectively monitor and manage these funds moving forward. So if the board truly cares to demonstrate their integrity in their decision-making, I propose the following conditions for the board if they were to earn the money. So it would require highly detailed estimates with a timeline of implementation. This includes providing fully itemized estimates, allowing the community to understand what the money is going to be spent on moving forward. Next, we need to collectively understand how bids are sought after and how each bid is being assessed through these forums. And now we must allow the community to give feedback once we are fully informed of detailed estimates prior to any bids being chosen. Once the board makes a preliminary decision, the board should inform the public of the choice through another forum. Next, the board must then reconsider their preliminary decision if transparency in the decision-making process is not sufficiently provided and communicated in a timely manner. This would require forums to be held on a bi-weekly basis. It would require much more of your guys' time, but this would allow us for the community to collectively manage and monitor how these funds are being allocated over time. Now, being this is a lot I asked for, I'm only proposing this because this would help ensure integrity and public confidence through these conditions and how these funds are going to be allocated. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else?
People go last, don't they? So I don't know if it makes me dumber or smarter based on my time on this planet, but
I was involved in 3 bond issues on committees with the high school issue, and the third one finally passed. But the first 2 failed, one very close vote. And one of the main issues of pushback was athletics, primarily from Atanum and Tampico. And we, as a group, I'm not including myself because I pounded the drum as much as I could for athletics as well, because I think it's a key element in education and motivation and keeping kids in school. So all that said, we had I'm noticing here that we're talking about $8 million or 7.5 for replacing this, that, and the other for an athletic field, which I think is absolutely insane. And do with what you got. I mean, it's just a damn game. You're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to have a few bruises, and then you go back to the same field and do the best you can. There are a whole lot of fields in this county that are in horrible condition compared to what we have here. I put 8 kids through this school district. I have 17 and 1 on the way, grandchildren. A lot of them are going to be part of the future. When I was 29, I was adjudged out of 458 applicants of Businessman of the Year for the state of Washington. I'm somewhat proud of that. I was kind of embarrassed for a little while, and I thought, that's pretty cool. But I was runner-up. There was one guy better than me in all these people's opinion, which is fine. The point I'm trying to make is we had an opportunity, and we're talking about acquisition of other property. It doesn't say what or where. We had a bitch fight over the property where the high school was going to go. I didn't think it should go there. We had an opportunity to buy 100 and some acres behind Cottonwood. We didn't do it. Now there are homes in there. We could have bought it really reasonably. We could have had buses in and out. I mean, we could have, but we didn't. We have ice issues going up and down for the next 50 years to get to events in school on the hill. It's always been an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue. We're going to have to keep fighting that dumb decision. We were going to tear the gym down because it didn't have wheelchair access. And I said, you can always fix those things. You can deal with that. But no, we need to tear it. And I said, you need every damn inch of basketball, volleyball floor space because of Title IX. You got all these different new people wanting to be active in sports, and you don't increase the sports space. Look at what Yakima School District did. Some of the dumbest damn things, and you know they're dumb because you can see them. Turned the baseball field around in the wrong position, the worst position on Franklin School, because they want to put the football field in. So what did it turn into be? A dog track for the neighborhood to run walk their dogs around. They never hardly played football there. The point is, we were trying to save a gym, an older gym space. We need all the gym space we can get in this community for AAU and increasing capacity and so on. We tore down a perfectly good gym that would have lasted a long time because the city would not allow us to take the football field into Franklin Park 1 inch. It was just insane and dumb. There have been so many issues with bonds, and usually it's, well, we shouldn't ask the public for too much money because then it would defeat it. But if you're responsible and analyze it and present it right, people will buy it. I think this $19 million should be given back to the public as a public relations, if nothing else, and say, look, we're going to give this money back. We've managed this thing pretty well, and we appreciate your involvement. The next thing we want to do is we want to ask for this, this, and this, and it'll fly past the public because it'll give you the credibility that we've, in many districts, lost. when we were debating about buying this property for the high school, everybody said, well, we ought to buy Archer property for $8,000 an acre. I said, you guys are out of your mind. These aren't 60, 80-year-old trees. These are brand new Fujis this guy just planted and put up, strung up wire and all that stuff. Well, he won't talk to us. He's mad at us. And I went over and talked to him. He's a nice guy. You know what his capability was? He was a chief engineer for Stapleton Airport's 3 of the 5 runways. He wasn't an Apple guy. It was just something to do. He was very, very, very hospitable. But no, they said, well, we talked to him 10 years ago. Well, it all worked out fine. Took $3 or $4 million to flatten that damn property. Wasted money. Cottonwood was already flat. These are the kind of stupid things that people don't think about from a long-term 50-year plan. I called Seattle. I said, what's the most you've ever paid for a piece of property? Well, in downtown Metro or Seattle, we had to pay $500,000 for an acre. So I came back and I said, you think $25,000 an acre is excessive? Here's what happened over in Seattle. You people are clear. You're not even in the right planet. Your thinking is skewed, and you're not in reality. Find out what's going on around you. I'm not going to criticize your budgeting and this, that, and the other, and the wells and all that. But a lot of this maintenance should be in your budget for the year. You know, these locks on doors and all this and that. I found out recently there are cameras in the buses that don't work. Why? If you put them in there, make them work. I mean, that's like the city putting in street lights and then the lights are out. At every other intersection. This is just normal business. It's part of your budgeting plan for each school and whoever your maintenance person is and whoever oversees that. So, you know, one time somebody says, how many attorneys have you paid for? I'm at 24 so far, and I hope I never have to pay for another one. And your father was one of them. He was fabulous. That's all I have to say. And you weren't a bad quarterback either.
Can you identify yourself, sir? What was your name again?
Oh,
Scott
I
Wilson?
didn't catch it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Angel Mata, and I'm a West Valley resident. I have a senior going through school, and I also help out in the football program, so I hope that's not held against me. I want to commend the board coming under budget, providing a bond that passed. That was a huge endeavor after a couple of failures, being able to squeak that by. And then on top of that, like I said, it come under budget was amazing. And that's just something for me as I looked at it. I wanted to invest into the school. I was all in, I voted for it. That's money that I've already considered to spend. I don't expect any money back. And then to find out that you guys came in $19 million under budget. And then on top of that, for you guys to be extremely transparent, let the community know, hey, this is what we came in under budget. This is why. These are some of the options that we have. Give the money back, not give the money back, give part of it back, use it. Extremely transparent from my point of view. So when I look at it, I'm a black and white guy. My money, I've already considered spent. You guys came in under budget. You have a list of needs that is not going to change from today and tomorrow. It's only going to get worse. You postpone this for a levy or something to get voted on. These things are getting worse. They're not going to get better. There's things that are needed now. Now, whether it's a football field or not, there's some items on there that need to get replaced, repaired, fixed for the school, for your students, for the safety of the facilities. And I look at it, like I said, money already spent. I highly appreciate you guys coming with a plan on what you would like to do, what we could do, what our options are. Very transparent from my point of view. And it's something that I just really appreciate you guys. And I love to have the opportunity to say that I am voting for option 3. I think it's something that we don't have time to wait for stuff to break down, for stuff to get fixed, for people to argue. There's money in the bank now that's going to get reinvested to schools, that's going to get reinvested to your youth. Kids are running around doing stuff they shouldn't be. There's programs at the school that keeps them busy, sports, academic, social clubs. Let's encourage that. If the last couple of years, I know a prior respondent mentioned COVID, and I'm just going to touch briefly on it. If COVID era taught us anything, is that a sense of community is super important for our youth, for our elderly, for us. Being detached without that human interaction, it's not something that anybody wanted. When were kids clamoring to go to school? When has that ever happened? So let's provide them facilities to want to come back, be it athletic, academic, social, whatever it is. Let's use these funds, put it back in the school, make West Valley a better place for other communities to come in, thrive, and for students and everybody else to just feel a sense of home, feel a sense of pride, go into a building and know it's getting taken care of. We have the ability to do that right now. Please don't waste it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next person?
Shorter. Let's put this down here. Hi, I'm Raquel Martinez. I've been a member of the school community for 8 years, and I went to West Valley. Before that, my daughter went to Summit View School, and I was on the PTO board for all the years she went there, all 5 years. I was helping raise the money for this bond committee the 3 times. So the first 2 times, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be saying something wrong. I know you guys usually don't respond, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The first 2 times we tried to raise money for Summit View, Apple Valley, and the junior high, and it didn't pass. And we called people and we begged people to vote, and I appreciate and I recognize faces here calling people and saying, you don't have kids here anymore, but you voted. Appreciate it. Didn't work the first 2 times. Then we dropped off the junior high. So when I'm looking at the suggested places to use this leftover money, which I'm a full proponent of, let's not give the money back. It was really hard to raise this money. It was begging 3 times for the money. I absolutely don't think we should give it back. I think we should say it's needed. We've got plenty of projects needed. But my thought here in looking at where the options of where to use it, it was the junior high that was supposed to be on the bond committee or on the bond with this one that got dropped off. So isn't the junior high the place that needs it the most? And I will say right now, my daughter is at the middle school where they're currently walking between the middle school for 3 periods, and then they go to the junior high for 3 periods. So we talked all about school safety for Summit View and Apple Valley to make sure there was no doors on the outside so the kids didn't have to go outside to get their lunches because it's not safe for school shooters. But now, 1 period a day, we have 600 kids walking between the middle school and the junior high in an open field. Is that safe? Why are we doing that? I'm furious as a parent that that's happening. And I just am saying the junior high was next on the list. So when we look at this itemized list of who needs projects, I believe it's the junior high. I believe there needs to be enough classrooms in the junior high if we can add portables with this money, if we can build out classrooms, whatever's needed where these kids aren't transferring from the middle school to the junior high all at 1 period. Why are the teachers not switching? Why are the kids doing this? How safe is that? I'm a little bit thrown when I look at these numbers. I'm sorry, I'm passionate about it. I totally agree with the gentleman who said 7.8 million on a football field. That's probably not where we should use half the money. Let's look at the schools. Let's see who was next on the list. I think as a taxpayer, since they knew they voted for, it didn't pass with the junior high, but if they knew most of the money went to go do some of those improvements, I feel like I would feel a little better, taxpayers would feel a little better that that was the next place that's needed. I don't know the future plans. I don't know if that's the next one on the bond, but I assume that would be the next bond we raise. It's for the junior high. So why wouldn't we start making improvements where we can? I'm also a little confused to find out later that the 2 schools that were built, Apple Valley and Summit View, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not even cooking in the kitchens that we built in these brand new schools? Is all the school lunches being cooked at the junior high and delivered to those schools? And if that's the case, why did we build kitchens in those schools? Why was that money used for kitchen? I'm not sure, but my only thought is let's do option 4, not option 3 with the suggested ideas here. Let's give the money to the junior high that needs it next, or middle school and junior high. However we keep these kids from having to transfer 300 kids here, 300 kids there. all at the same time seems like it's the next spot. Probably not a football field. Just my thoughts. Raquel Martinez. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next person.
Hello, my name is Nisha Davis, and I am a parent of 2 kids who go to West Valley schools. I've got a kiddo at Cottonwood and one at the middle school this year. And yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I really appreciate the opportunity to hear from us. And I feel like this forum is a really big step in my eyes for building that transparency and building that trust. And so, yeah, I appreciate that. And to me, I think that's all that it takes for me to say I'm a fan of option 2. I do see that there are a lot of needs here on the list, maintenance issues and other issues as well. And I'm happy for, yeah, I did vote for the bond. I am a West Valley homeowner. I did vote for the bond because it's, my kids get to, make the most of that. But also, we moved here about 6 years ago. And one of the reasons we moved to West Valley was because of the really fantastic reputation that West Valley has. And, as a young mom, when we moved here 6 years ago, my daughter was about to start kindergarten, go off to school for the first time. And to be, very honest, that was a scary time for me. It was scary, to entrust my children, my daughter with other people. And every year that she has been at Cottonwood and now at the middle school, every year, all of my fears are for nothing. She's had a really fantastic education. She has had teachers who love her and care about her and want the best for her. And now my son is in first grade at Cottonwood, and he also gets a really fantastic education. And anytime that there is an issue where, sometimes my kids struggle in school, but I feel like the schools really support them both, each in their own unique ways. And I really value that. I also, my daughter's in 6th grade, and I'm really excited about the opportunities that she has, that you guys really have put a big emphasis on academics and, the Innovation Center and all the different opportunities she has to challenge herself in new ways to get a really good education. And so, yeah, I think that the safety issues are really important to me. But I really love also that the money, the funds that you guys have had thus far have also just, allowed you to provide a really awesome education for my kids, and that I feel comfortable entrusting them to you. So, yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your comment. Next person.
Hi, I'm Tara Cobia. I've 5 kids. Well, sorry, one just graduated. 4 kids left in the district. And if we're talking options, I'm for option 3 or option 4. But what I wanted to kind of the point I guess I wanted to bring up is that I feel like when the bond was passed for the 2 elementary schools, like that's where the money went. And I don't think there's anyone trying to say that we tried to spend it somewhere else, and that's why we're doing the community forum. And so I know that there are some strong opinions that it should all be returned, because otherwise we're going back against our word. And I feel like our word has been that word's been fulfilled, because the money has not been spent on anything else but for those schools. We didn't anticipate that there would be extra funding. And so I think because we have needs, some that are new needs, some that are existing, I feel like the money that was left, if we need to, then that can be by a community vote, can be decided where it goes. But we also have that government matched. And I think that there's no reason why that shouldn't go towards the needs that we have that are out there. So since I presented to the board in July about the idea of putting funding towards the all-inclusive restrooms, since then we've continued to collect signatures. And those signatures, we've tried really hard to make sure that people know that if you're signing this, you're signing it not because you want the all-inclusive bathroom, but because you want it. And you were consenting to having the expense, being used with these extra funds. And when I came in today, our online numbers were up to 325 in favor, and our handwritten ones are right around 350 to 400. So as many people as have come to the two forums and have spoken and have presented their opinions, they are totally valuable. And I'm so grateful for everybody and for you guys listening. But we already have, 500 to 600 plus signatures of West Valley community members who are in favor of using those excess funds to fund the needs that we have in our district. So I think that by putting it to a community vote and put it on the ballot, then there's no question whether or not the board misused any funding. You guys spent it the way it was meant to be spent on our two schools. And I think that anything after that, you put it up to the community, you're not liable for misusing those funds. You didn't misuse those funds. You used them exactly the way you said that you would use them. So let the community decide how the excess is being spent. That government match, that doesn't need to go back to, we're not going to return it to the government. They gave it to us as a gift, as a match that, for our district. So I don't know, I think that those funds should be used for our district. So if we are doing a partial and we need to return, what was left over, I think that's great. But if not, I think that we do have a lot of needs. I think some should be coming out of our long-term facility plan and those maintenance things, we just should anticipate what some of those maintenance things are going to be, and that should just be happening. But when we have some new needs, like the restrooms, the track, some of those things, which I'm 100% in favor for both of those items, let's do it. Let's put that money towards that so we can have what we need to have our kids safe, to be able to support in the activities and the events in the communities that need to be happening. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Peter Marinacci, good evening. I would echo the comments about having these community meetings. I think it's great. Get some feedback. I would also echo what the gal just spoke, and Nathan and a couple of other folks, that it's great. We got about 60 people here tonight. Last meeting, maybe it was 70. It's a cross section. However, it doesn't really capture the essence of what we had voters who voted on the two schools. And if you want to have a good feel of how the people feel about what you're deciding on, you need to do another vote. And maybe I would word it differently than Tara, who just spoke. Then you'll really know. And I think that would take away how you guys are feeling for some of you, where you feel like, oh, this is some sort of promise or commitment. Things changed from that vote until now. I don't know where it will end up. However, if you get a vote of the people, then you'll really know where you stand. Because otherwise, if you have these two community meetings and then you have the board meeting and a couple other people speak up, you're still going to have people that are ticked off. At least if you have a vote, you can point to that. Hey, you guys voted here, so we have to live by it. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you. Next, is there another speaker? All right.
Ryan Matthews, just a couple points of clarification. I've said this before. State match is funding provided to build the building. The state match is already sitting as the floors and the walls of the ceiling of those two schools. Okay, so we don't have an obligation. I wonder if we went to the state, to OSPI's school construction program and said, oh, by the way, we have your state match left over, whether or not they just asked for it back. Okay, so the reality is their state match has been used to construct the two buildings. Second item that I wanted to address is the budget that came out of the 2020 long-range facilities master plan for a replacement kind of concept for the junior high was someplace between $75 and $91 million. Okay, so $19 million of excess doesn't do much. Those numbers surely have not gone down. Those are estimates because there is not clarity on what the educational model is for the school district. Will West Valley have a single middle level campus building that supports 1,300, 1,400, or 1,500 students? Or will the West Valley School District from an educational program have two 750 student middle schools? Okay. So do you want one big building for 3 grades, or do you want 2 separate buildings, presumably in some different parts of the district, in order to support the educational program? Buildings should be safe. And if we haven't done the steps that we need reasonably, I don't know that we need metal detectors in elementary schools. I surely hope we don't. But the reality has been that the district has invested in school safety. All of the buildings now have secured entrances. It's unfortunate when we look at the occurrences that have happened in other parts of the world that doors have been left open. So it is a holistic approach. It's about training staff. It's about challenging the systems. Perhaps it's about having alarms on doors, so when the door is open longer than 25 seconds, there is some kind of notification that comes into place. Since 2017, we've had a long-range planning commitment. At least I thought we did. So in 2017, we started with a charter. The charter was intended to be an agreement between a long-range facilities planning committee and the school board. 3 pages. We started out then that fall of 2016, 2017 with what we first challenged as kind of what we called an elementary school boundary planning document. This document didn't cost the district anything, okay, because we had a group of community members that spent their time, spent their energy, and delivered this document. In 2020, in the stages of planning for what ultimately became the bond campaign for Apple Valley and some of you, the district went out and solicited and retained a firm to help guide us through that final really busy time frame of building up a period of community involvement and project evaluation that delivered Summit View and Apple Valley. Okay, so we have this document, and then later in December, it was actually a board presentation. I bring these up because they represent just the top stack of 2 banker boxes that Michael has and another 2 boxes that I have. Facilities planning has to be a long process. We cannot look back on 5 years that have now culminated in excess bond proceeds and think that we've won the race. It's not a single race. It's a commitment to our buildings. Today, the last board meeting, we were at a Tandem. A Tandem's carpets, brown by Note Nate, were beaten up because the carpets from 1993. Every day, 300 kids run down the hallway. Every day, those carpets are well worn. We've not invested in long-range facilities maintenance and long-range planning. I encourage the board to continue the commitment. It is not about today. It's about bringing forward future success. It's about taking step after step after step so we can continue to provide buildings that are safe and that provide the educational opportunity that our kids deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Can you tell us which option you're in favor of? I think we know, but number 1. Thank you.
Don Kirby again. I appreciate
Mr. Kirby, before
Yes,
you
sir.
speak, I would like to give others a chance who
Agreed.
haven't spoke, who would like to speak. Is there anyone else?
Are you good?
You okay? Okay.
I
Go
just
ahead.
had a question and a comment. What Ryan said, my understanding of state match is correct, is project specific, not bond specific, for sure. So if you've already submitted your D11s, you've closed the project out and got the D12 back, you're done. So with regard to those projects, my question was, where is the district at with some of the ESSER funds, ESSER 1, 2, and 3 that were distributed? I believe it was about 8.7 million. I was just looking at the list that you folks have, and a lot of the projects that we're doing right now basically are using those ESSER funds for mechanical and electrical and some of those HVAC upgrades. I'm just curious if what the status of the ESSER funds are. Have they been expended? Have they been contemplated to do any of these capital projects lists? That was the only question I had, so.
Yes, so our Assistant Superintendent is Joe Conley. I actually spoke with him this morning on Monday regarding this. The use of ESSER funds for the HVAC system, there's a vetting process that you have to go through with OSPI. You have to show that there's circulation problems with the HVAC, and then you get approval from OSPI to move forward with that. As we looked at our HVAC, it's really more energy efficiency and wanting to upgrade to new standards that there are. And it's not necessarily the circulation issues that are the reasons that we want to move forward in the future with replacement of HVAC. And so we were basically concerned that we would not get approval with OSPI in that vetting process. Overall, I believe there's close to 4 million remaining in ESSER. Is that correct, Joe? Yeah, about 4 million. Right. And so the use of those funds are for the negative impacts of COVID that we've had for student learning and also for the costs associated with COVID.
Just to add, we did vet that with Apollo, so we were working with the company in regards to HVACs, chillers, those types of things, and the expenses were pretty high in comparison to our ESSER funds available. We also had to ensure staffing levels and those types of things. ESSER funds were available as well.
Right. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, and we have reviewed it, and there were other community members that had the same question. So we did put a article on the website about the use of ESSER funds and where we're at on that. But thank you.
All right, next person.
So Ben Jensen, I have 4 kids in the district and soon to be 5. I've had kids go to Atanum, White Hollow, and now at the middle school, junior high, and soon to the high school. So I guess I haven't heard a lot of comments. I came in late. I have a previous commitment on Tuesday night, so I couldn't get here until late. But I was at the last one, came in late, and I guess my thought was after hearing the comments last week or last time and thinking about it and talking about it with my wife, and then doing a little research of how much taxes we pay in our district compared to other districts in the valley. We actually pay quite a bit less. We're on the lower end of that from my research. And I guess the point of these meetings were to gather information, right? To get the community's input on what to do with the funds. Because I watched the first part of the last one, and there's very strong opinions on the board. There's very strong opinions in the community, right? So in these meetings, we're going to hear from 100 people, 200 people, right? You might get maybe 100 emails regarding, what people think. And people are very passionate about it, right? On one side or the other. And I think there's, just like on the board, I think there's some people that are in the middle that are torn of what to do. And I'm actually in that middle part, right? I'm torn of giving some back, but there's a lot of needs that we have, right, in the district, along things that I don't remember. One of the gentlemen just said that we have some long-term. So I work for a company. I'm a CFO for a company, so I deal with lots of numbers. A lot of these things on this list, I would say, are long-term projects, things that we have to plan for well in the future, right? I mean, some of these things we're not going to be able to plan for, but we're going to have funds set aside for things like this. And so I guess the whole point of these meetings was to get community input. My opinion is do an advisory vote, right, for the community. Because, I mean, you're total between this and emails you're going to get a couple hundred opinions, right? And most likely the very passionate opinions on either side of the debate, which, because those are the people that show up to the meetings, right, are the ones that are very passionate about it. And so by doing an advisory vote, I think Mr. Thorner last time said there was 7,000 people that voted for the last bond, right? And 5,800 passed or something like that. from my memory. By doing an advisory vote, we might get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, 7,000 people giving you their opinion, right, of what to do with it. And it might not be the full 7,000 that actually voted for the bond, but you will have a lot more opinions voiced, right, by doing an advisory vote. So whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people, I guess. So in my place of work, the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. And so I'm of the opinion, I don't know what it would cost the district, but I would be the opinion of, let's do an advisory vote, because there's lots of people with lots of opinions. And by doing that, you would have better information on what the community wants. So, and like I said, I'm torn. I've talked to a lot of people. I have very good friends on both sides of the debate, right? Of return all of it, no, use all of it, right? So, and I may be somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I still don't know, right? I've done a lot of research. I've done, but I guess the whole thing was getting the opinion of the community, and I feel like by doing an advisory vote, you would get the most opinions, and I guess that's my thought. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Before we get second speakers, are there any more that have not spoken yet? I would like to take those who have not had a chance to speak first before people. Okay.
I got nervous when I was up here and then you cutting me off, but so why I brought those issues up with the LGBTQ and with us going through the pandemic and masking our children and everything, when we, the parents, we have spoken and asked you to not do these things, if you had to help the LGBTQ or someone going through a transition, and I do have one of my children that are, but I still believe that whatever God gave you between, you should go there. You can dress however you want, but whatever a boy should go into boys' bathroom, a girl should go to girls. You could identify, but no, listen. The thing is that your board constantly said, you have to do this. You have to mix them in locker rooms and bathrooms. If you had all this money, why didn't you make a separate bathroom for those individuals? The majority of people, we are living women and we're living boys. And so the safety in that, we parents have come to board after board telling you how unsafe it was. Okay, so, and then you had all this money and you said, oh, we have to, because it will take the federal money away. That's why I said the federal money. And then you're sitting on all this money. And when we could have done that, you didn't have to. It was a choice.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude here. I don't want to cut you off.
No,
let me
but
finish.
okay.
Let me finish. I let you speak, okay? Let me finish, okay? The purpose of this meeting is to talk about the funds.
That
Hear
is
me-
funds.
Okay,
That
okay.
is funds.
But what you're bringing up is not what we are here.
Yeah, but everyone
Let me
should
finish,
know.
ma'am. Let me finish, please. There's a time and place for these issues. Please come to our board meetings if you would, Louis.
Oh, but
speak.
you
There is an
86'd me.
There is an open
So
section.
you gave me a letter and threw your dirty laundry, and because I went over a minute and you used we live in America and we have free speech. If you haven't noticed, our Second Amendment right, and on top of that,
Okay.
no, I get to speak.
Then
We
please-
pay you. See that is what needs to change.
We aren't getting paid.
So
We are not getting paid. And I'm gonna say one last thing. I'm gonna let you speak. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. Please keep your points on task and what we're here to discuss. If you
I
want
wouldn't
to
mind
let me finish. You'll
spending
get
the
2
money.
minutes.
It
and I'm
can
gonna
go to
start it now. Your
Hoover.
2 minutes will start, and at the end of the 2 minutes, we will move
It
on.
could
'cause
go
there
to
are other people
Hoover
who want to talk.
if we need to give them money, because Hoover has no money. Lewis and Clark doesn't have no money. The inner city school doesn't have none.
They're not in our district.
They're not in
I
our
know
district.
they're not
Thank
in
you.
our district, but I'm just saying, if we want to help our community, we're part of that community, aren't we?
We're here to.
But I know we're in West
Hold
Valley,
on. We're here to talk about. I'm sorry.
West
No, go ahead,
Valley
because
and the
you might-
school. And I'm saying I want safety, and I want safety for our children. And so you should, if you're going to spend this money, you should make a separate bathroom. It should not be mixed.
So you
Okay,
support- so you support option 3 or 4, which is to use the money.
if you're going to use it, if that happens, it needs to be done in that way. If not, then it should just go back to the people.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next.
Hi there.
No. Thank you.
My name's Jeanette Knight, and I'm in the West Valley District. And I've had a child. I have one child, and they've been at Apple Valley and freshman campus. They've been moved all around. So I want to say thank you so much for what you've done with the schools and coming under a budget. It's very hard, and especially with the pandemic and all the supply issues and everything. So as far as based on what I've seen so far in the capital project list, I'm of the mindset that I would probably go for option 2. For those of you who are on the fence, though, if you need to do a public forum to, get consensus, I would support that too as well. I definitely thank you for the transparency in outlining this. I think, community input is important, and I appreciate this. And, I definitely like to echo some of the other statements about safety and making sure our elementary schools are safe and the middle school, with the kids walking back and forth, just emphasizing that. And I don't know if that's made it on here or not, but that's kind of some of my 2 cents on that. So I wanted to thank you, everyone. So that's my comments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Name is Michael Moore. I just want to thank everybody for the thoughts, the comments for the last 2 meetings. I'm a strong advocate for option 1. And there's a number of different reasons for that, but I'll stick to my main reason. 3 or 4 years ago, we started down a path, and Ryan spoke about that. And it involved a plan. It involved a commitment from the board, the superintendent, the citizens, the community, everybody. We can't do it without the board leading the way, period. The choice that you're going to make in the near future has ramifications for years to come. We had to fight to overcome the decisions that were made to use prior bond money for 2 or 3 years. We had to fight. We passed the last bond, this one here, by 70 votes, 70. And it took 3 tries, took a couple of different versions of that, okay? And at that time, we made a commitment together. And I'm not willing to let that go. We can talk about promises, we can talk about all sorts of things, but it was a commitment that we made together. And we need to continue along that path, as Ryan said. We do need everything on that list. I want a new football field more than anything. I was in the press box at Hermiston. It's incredible. I felt like I was on ESPN at a college game. And it was embarrassing to go up to ours. It is. I'm not going to be shy about that. It was an amazing facility. There's amazing facilities all over that we go to. Sunnyside, a great example. And I want to provide those for our kids. I want the absolute best. But we cannot do it by using this money. We have to have a long-term commitment to the community, everybody. We need school safety. I agree with a lot of the points that Nate made. We need that. We need to think outside the box when opportunities come our way. I want to remind you that the initial meeting, less than a week after we passed this vote, a project manager was named to run this bond, to run the 2 schools. And it was said that we were going to do a design, bid, build, delivery. And some people out in the community fell on a sword and fought to get a GCCM delivery. And Don Kirby is absolutely right. One of the reasons why we're 19 million under budget is the delivery of how this project was performed. There's a lot of factors, but that was a big one. And if we would have stuck to what the initial plan was, you'd probably be looking at some of you right now. I don't know if the roof would be on it. Okay? And that's just a fact. So we need that level of commitment from community members, everybody in this room. We need the ideas. It takes 60% plus 1 vote for a bond. It takes 50% plus 1 vote for a levy. There's a lot of options to raise money through the community. We have a need for volunteers. We have a need for voters, for people, everybody in this room. I counted 60 at the first meeting, and there's about 40 different people here tonight. That's 100 people. If each one of you contacted 20 people, that's 2,000 voters in the community. 5,800 was enough to get 60% plus about 70. That's a third of the votes we need to build a $90 million junior high. The long-range plan, 3 to 7 years, recommended $120 to $140 million of needs in this community. I appreciate the list that the district provided, but it's well short of the needs. We still have an opportunity. One of my biggest disappointments is we knew about this almost 2 years ago, that we were going to have well over $10 million of savings. We tried to say, this is a win. It's a huge win. It's going to be a win. Why are we not capitalizing on this right now, gaining the trust of the community? And that's one of the biggest things that disappoints me about this entire process. We were given a gift to earn the trust of the voters, a gift. The road was not just paved in asphalt. It's a golden brick road, for crying out loud. It's handing the football off at the 2-yard line in the Super Bowl. We don't need an audible. Just hand it off. We knew that a year and a half ago. And yet we will not commit to long-range planning. And I don't understand it. So, please, everybody here, when the next vote comes, when the next measure comes on the ballot, show up. The last levy, we had 4 or 5 meetings around the community. I bet we had a total of 10 people show up to help. 10. And 100 show up here tonight to figure out what to do with $19 million. That should just go back to the voters. Should have already been decided. It's been asked and answered. So that's what we need. We need a commitment. We need leadership. And we need the support of the community. But it starts with you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any more comments?
I just have a question. So I did a little research on bonds versus levies, and I'm pretty naive. So I'm going to ask some sincere questions. So of the items on this list, how many of these can be passed by a levy versus a bond? Can most of these be done with a levy? Because from my understanding, it didn't seem like a lot of those could be done by a levy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
Is
as
that
Michael
correct?
just said, there's bond issues and there's levy issues. The bond is where you sell bonds and they
Yeah.
pay back over 20 years. So the levy, you can do capital levy, but there's
You can?
yes, but there's a cap to the amount that could be asked.
Okay.
And the cap is based on what your assessed value is in the district and how much you've already asked for other levies. So, it would vary by district. But, basically, bottom line is like for the Mountain View well, certainly that could be covered by a capital levy.
So
But a new junior high would not be able to be covered.
Obviously, the new junior high, probably the football field, I'd imagine, and the track, everything probably couldn't be done by a levy, or could it? Could it be?
Probably could be.
Yeah, it would be close that you could do it with a capital levy.
Okay. Okay, so I guess most of these could be done by a levy, which is 50 plus one vote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I have.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Okay.
Having lived out in West Valley for quite a while, my 3 kids have gone through West Valley. Love the district. The bonds and the levies drive me crazy, but that's a whole other story. I'm not going to get into that. My experience with past levies have been what they list. Sorry. What they list out that they're actually getting the money for isn't always what happens. A lot of other stuff gets added or gets traded out. I mean, Mountain View well. Let's talk about Mountain View well. My kids are 36, 34, and 29. They weren't supposed to drink out of the water taps then when they were in grade school at Mountain View. That's how long that well's been bad. So you have that here as high. It's been high for years. And now it makes it on this list. Is it really going to get fixed? How many bonds has it been on? The septic system out there, did it ever get replaced? That's why they gutted Mountain View years ago and built Cottonwood. I mean, my kids were in Mountain View when Cottonwood was built. And most of the kids from Mountain View and others, they actually brought in kids from they bused kids from 3 grade schools and put them in Cottonwood. Both of my daughters had mixed classes, 3rd and 4th, 5th, and 6th at that time. And the septic system was awful then, and that's why they emptied it, is because the septic system got so bad. So my question is, was that ever replaced? Do you know? I mean, this was 20 years ago. Do you know? Was it replaced
I do
in the
not
last
know,
20
so
years?
I'll be honest. I do not know.
You have no clue.
I was not here 20 years ago, so.
Well, so did they, when? They fixed it a couple years ago. Oh my gosh.
Well, I don't know if they fixed it 20 years ago also, but a couple years ago it was all dug up again. So drain field. So,
Oh, a new drain field. So, septic system. Well, this is just for Mountain View. This isn't even talking about Atana, which is the oldest grade school we have now. And my question is, you got a list, but what's really going to get done? Because at this point, I don't trust West Valley levies. I don't trust these lists. Your priorities get moved. As soon as you have money in the hand, your priorities get moved. It is so frustrating. Carpet from 93 in Otana. Come on, you guys. How much does it cost to put new carpet in a school? I don't know. Maybe it's astronomical. I don't know. Anyway, but my question is, you got to be honorable here. If you're going to give some of this money back, which I was thinking of opting out, I must admit. I'm probably not going to get this money back. I was thinking of opting out because we're of the senior citizen age now where we can actually opt out of the levies and the bond issues on our property tax. because it's always been a pet peeve of mine that 18 to 23-year-olds can actually vote for our bonds and levies. They're not landowners. The landowners pay for it. So I think option one, I mean, you're probably going to end up putting it up to a vote. I hope you do. But I bet, knowing West Valley School District and how hard it is to pass a bond and a levy here, it's probably going to go for option one. They're going to want their money back. And I'm probably not going to see much of it because I want to opt out. But that's my 2 cents worth. By the way, I will take a check. You said no checks. I'm thinking, hey, give me a check. Okay, thank you. That's it.
But that's just not possible.
I understand.
That's just not-
I
mean,
am
if-
facetiously
okay.
kidding you.
I
But
understand.
you can even
but-
give me a fake check. I would put it up on
Yeah.
my bulletin board.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I did not did you have an option choice here of any of
One.
those? Option one.
One. Give it back, or at the very least, put it up for a vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, have we heard from everybody who's willing to speak tonight? If so, what I would like to do is take a 5-minute break. The board will come back, at which point each board member will have a chance to make a closing statement about their observations, their comments for tonight. Sorry. 5 minutes. All right. All right, we're ready to reconvene and wrap up for this evening. So for those who are staying around, please have a seat and we'll go ahead and wrap up the meeting.
Make those guys use it like they. Oh, God.
All right, first of all, once again, and I know we've said this several times on behalf of all of us up here, I'd like to thank all of you who have taken the time to come out, share your perspective, your ideas, your thoughts with us as we kind of go through the deliberations here of what to do with this pleasant problem we have. So with that, thanks again for all your comments. We're going to wrap up here. Like we did in the beginning of the first forum, every board member was given an opportunity to present an opening statement. Conversely, at this meeting, I would like to give every board member an opportunity to provide a closing statement. So I will go side to side until we kind of wind up in the middle here. So why don't we start on my left here with Mr. Mokel?
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Sorry about that.
I've been one of those that have been torn on this issue. I have not made it a secret since my joining the board that I am a kid advocate number one. That means safety, that means facilities, that means programs, anything that will benefit one of our children as they are entering our schools. These dollars could go towards making life easier, making life safer for our kids. However, as a parent, as a teacher, as a husband, I try to keep my word. This bond was passed. This bond was run before I was sitting on the board. It was run with the intention that these dollars were to be used solely for 2 schools. And that is where my mind keeps going, my heart keeps going on this situation. We entrusted volunteers to put together the plan and to deviate from that plan because of an opportunity that's in front of us, I think breaks the trust of those people. That's where I stand right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mokel. Going to my right side here, Mr. Meyer.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that did come out and took the time to speak and give us your opinions. But I'm a lot like Mr. Mokel on the other end, is that I've always been a proponent of the students and a lobbyist for their needs, their wants. That's always come first in my mind. And this situation where it's been related to it, to me anyway, and to us, that a promise was made to the community, and I've looked at all the paperwork and everything else. I don't see any promises in any of it. And I've heard tonight many different views about the approach to the uses of the money, portions of it, returning it, using it all, whatever. And I'm still, at this point, on the fence as to where to go. We have a lot of needs that, things that need to be addressed now. And we have the means to do it. And I don't know that I would feel that bad about using some of that money, or all of it, to fix a lot of these things and provide more opportunities for the students that we have in our classrooms right now. And I know, a lot of you don't know, but I've done quite a few things in this short life of mine, from driving truck to firefighting to teaching. And now I'm come down to, I send a lot of board meetings. And it's one of those things where I retired from teaching because I felt I could do more for the students from this position than I could in the classroom. And I still believe that. Because I do get to have a say in what kind of opportunities we do provide and what kind of academic opportunities we provide for all of them. And I don't disagree with Mr. Wilson and a couple of the others in that I was one of those fairly decent athletes way back in the day. You know, wasn't spears and shields, but it was almost. And I think that athletics is also a very important part of education. And I've known over my aging process, many, many of them that wouldn't be where they are today. And some of them are really successful if it hadn't been for athletics, because that's what kept them in school. And they found out that, hey, I can use this stuff later on. And went on and because of their athletic ability, played at some pretty nice colleges, got their degrees and became successful. So I'm still on the fence as to what my decision's going to be, but I think you got a good feel for how I feel. And that money's ours. You know, I pay taxes out here and all that. And somebody said, as a senior citizen, they could write them off. Well, I've been a senior citizen for quite a while now. And I'm still paying them, and I plan on to continue doing that. It's just a good feeling to be in a position where we do have an opportunity to use some funds, and it sounds like a lot of money. Actually, in reality, it's not. You know, and paid back over the life of the bond, it's really minuscule as to how it'll affect each individual. So I think from there, you know where I'm coming from, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Going back to my left here, Mr. Jager.
I'm Dave Jager. Again, thank you all for showing up tonight again. I don't want to have to read the same speech I gave last, but I'm totally in favor of spending the money. I would love to be sitting here and hearing people say, "You're right, Dave, you're right," in giving the money back. That's the honorable thing to do, is give the money back. I would love to be able to do that. But I cannot, in good faith, agree to do that because we have some needs. And it would make me feel great to give the money back. But we have a football field, and we're focusing on football field. It's a football field track. And really, if we really look at what it's going to cost, the track is going to be more than the football field. We can, if we get the East Valley's bid, fix the football field for $250,000. The track is going to be the major expense. It needs to go clear down to the base and get fixed correctly. We cannot run district meets on our track. We have one football team from Tri-Cities who won't play football on our field. We played Eastmont the other night, and yeah, they have a good team. And a couple of times on the west end of the football field, the guy stumbled, and I laughed at my wife and said, "That's our advantage because that dirt is so loose over there, they don't know how to run on it." And then our guys fell on it too later, so it didn't make any difference. But we have a football field that needs, I hope we don't have rain by the end of the year. Because if we get rain on that field, it's going to be a mud bath for the football games. And that's an embarrassment to me, and it should be to everybody. That field, we've done everything we possibly can do for that field. It needs to be replaced. And the track needs to be replaced. 4 years ago, we had a group of individuals looking into the cost, $2.5 million to $3 million, all-weather track or all-weather football field track, the whole thing, $2.5 to $3 million. We were going to try to get private donations to run that and pay for that. At the same time, we decided to run a levy in the district. And so we dropped the idea of the football field track so we didn't get things muddled up and for fear of losing both. But that was 4 or 5 years ago. It was $2.5 to $3 million. Now Hanford built a track and football field for $7 million. Now maybe we could get it cheaper than Hanford, but that's what it looks like, how much it's costing more to fix things than it did 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years from now, it's going to be more than this. It's going to probably be double. Whatever we have now will probably be double. We have the money now. Why not get some things done? The junior high auditorium is a jewel. You don't build junior high auditoriums like that anymore. It is a beautiful place with the orchestra pit and all of that. You don't see that anymore. It needs to be fixed. It doesn't need a lot. I don't know, because I've asked and I haven't ever heard anybody tell me exactly what needs to be done. But I do know that if you're in a wheelchair, your spot is at the very end, at the back. That's the only access you have in the whole place, is in the very back. No other wheelchair access in that auditorium. And that is not legal. If you start remodeling that place, you have to have wheelchair access. I asked the builder of the elementary schools. I went through, he gave us a tour of one of the buildings, and I looked at the elevator. It goes first and second floor. About $250,000 in those schools was the cost just of the elevator. So if you're going to put an elevator at the junior high school so that you have handicapped access, that's $250,000. That to me would be the really expensive way to go. But we have to have in some way wheelchair access at the junior high auditorium. If we're going to fix it at all, we have to do that. Roofs that leak. I was at White Hollow, and it was just standard practice. When it rained, we put buckets out. I was at the middle school, and it's standard practice. When it rained, we had skylights at the middle school, and you put buckets out because it leaked. And to me, that was just part of life, and it was fine. I love both those schools. They're great schools. But if you just that's part of working here, is you're going to have to put some buckets out every once in a while to get things done. We need to fix some roofs. And the bottom line on that is that I was part of the problem. I am part of the problem, because I was sitting there as a principal arguing for staffing or arguing for something rather than listening to Critchlow tell us that we need to do this for our maintenance. And Tim Critchlow got outnumbered many, many times. He was our maintenance director for most of the time I was here. And we outvoted him. And that's partly my problem, my fault. We have an opportunity now to catch up. Finally, to catch up. If we give this money back, if you have a $350,000 house, and my house finally made it to $350,000 this year, 25% increase from last year. I pay right around $4,000 a year on taxes, a little less than $4,000 a year on taxes. I will see a decrease in my taxes of $164 out of $4,000. That's how much of a drop I'll see in my taxes. That is a day at the fair for a family. Come on, people. It's not, somebody said they'll see an $800 reduction in their taxes. They will if you have $1.5 million home. But us $350,000 people are going to see $164 difference in our taxes. The people that's on this list, I made the changes. We may not all agree, but we need to put stalls in the bathrooms of the boys' bathrooms at the high school. We may not agree that we should do that, but it's the law. And to protect our kids. Safety. Just the high school bathrooms was about $2 million. If we do shower rooms and the whole thing, it's about $6 million. That's safety. And that's something that we have no control over. That's not even my fault. That just happened. That's somebody in Libya passed a bill and said, you need to do this. And to me, it makes sense. We cannot tell a kid, not going to get into that. But the fact is that it needs to be done. And we have the money, we could do it right now. My frustration is the feeling tonight makes sense if you go to a vote. My problem with the vote, and I've heard this for quite a while. I've heard about the vote idea. There was a vote that was going to happen in the Lower Valley because they're going to kick 4 board members off their school board, and they're going to do a vote, and they figured it was $100,000 to have that vote. I assume if we had a vote, it's going to cost the district around $100,000, which is one of those projects would be $100,000. And my fear is that if we had a vote, and I know that there's a lot of people in this district that care dearly about athletics, but if we put a football field track on a vote of the people, it'll go down because they're not going to vote for it. My other problem is that if we give this money back and say what wonderful people we are, and then next year or the year after next, at the very latest, we come back with a capital levy and say we need $20 million to fix the football field and track, to fix the roofs, to fix the well at Mountain View, et cetera, et cetera. And the people are going to say, you had it 2 years ago and you gave it back. And now you're asking for it again. That makes no sense to me. And I think a lot of people in our community would also think that makes no sense. I think, well, we've got it, we spend it. And this idea about, we've been in trouble forever about lying to the voters. When I first got here, I was at White Hollow, and they just built White Hollow, and they'd used part of the money that was supposed to have finished an extra wing at White Hollow on the facade at the high school. And White Hollow started full, not a single empty classroom. If they had spent that money on another addition at White Hollow, there wouldn't have been a problem. But we spent the money at the high school. And were they upset at White Hollow about that? And they're forever. I mean, that's 40 years ago. Still upset about that. The high school, and we heard it again tonight, did a nice job getting the high school done. And part of that high school thing was to do some athletic fields, tennis courts, stuff like that. The tennis courts and the athletic fields got done. You spent money on athletics. You weren't supposed to do that. It was in there. And yet we got in trouble for it because people don't like to see money spent on athletics. We're going to be, no matter how we decide this, this group here is going to be in trouble. I mean, nobody's going to be happy with this. But I would rather have people mad at me if I did what I think's right. And that's why I'm going to be way in favor of spending the money. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jager. Mr. Thorner, your turn.
Okay. Well, as to echo the comments of my fellow board members, thank you for coming. Some of you came to both meetings. Some of you have come tonight. I want to echo something that I said in the last meeting, which is that I greatly respect or greatly appreciate the tone of tonight's meeting and the conduct over the last two meetings. Mr. Jager has wonderful, strong opinions in one direction, and I have opinions in the opposite direction. And I just would like to say that as to this issue, reasonable minds can differ about what the right thing is to do. It's not about, I think, and reasonable minds, even on the school board, all care about kids and all want to do the right thing for kids and all have different ideas about what's the right thing to do. I just happen to be a little bit more swayed to the concept of what we heard a little bit tonight about this bond was the start of a long-range plan, that we were going to execute on that plan and that we were going to deliver that plan. And one of the things to be very thankful for is not only the community support for passing and allowing us to build two beautiful schools, but it's also the thank you to a lot of people that stepped up to the plate in our community, in administration, on the school board, that bond oversight committee, people in the community that helped us make really good decisions to execute this bond very well. I can't say thank you enough for that. It's a great thing that it is a great thing that we were able to, deliver these schools. There were a lot of things that came together. Mr. Matthews, I encourage each and every one of you to pull up our last school board meeting and the public comments. And Mr. Matthews gave about a 3-minute summary of all of the good things and all of the things that aligned to get us to this point, to answer the question of, well, how did you end up with 19 million bucks? I think Mr. Moore's analogy of just run the ball, don't audible, I think has a lot of merit. And that isn't to say that this is not a legitimate need, or this list is not a legitimate list of needs. I think the difference is how do we tackle these needs? I've been on the school board for 9 years. I participated in 9 budget process. Every year that I've been on the board, the school board, in addition to, other monies that it commits toward our facilities, designates and has moved $1 million every year from our general fund to capital projects to tackle the needs of the district. It's not enough. It's not enough. We need to do better. So I would agree that we need to do better on the budgeting. We need to minimize what we ask the taxpayers for. I don't just say, give the money back and my thought, I have a problem with the advisory vote. I think that's not that I don't like the idea of putting it out to a vote, because part of my solution to this is a vote, but not an advisory vote, because my problem is I don't know what that advisory vote is supposed to look like. I don't know what that is. What are we voting on? And then, oh, by the way, what does it take to validate that? How do we compare that against the numbers that we achieved on the bond that passed? There's a whole lot of what ifs there, and it's an advisory vote. And I don't like the idea of, okay, well, we do the advisory vote and then we do something different than the advisory vote tells us. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. So I'd like to see us defease the money back. Come back to our community with the defined list of, here is what we'd like your support, because I trust in our community to be able to deliver on this support, that if we come with a defined list that's not $19 million, I'd like to see us run a capital levy. That levy could be for approximately 40 cents per thousand. It would be a 3-year levy that would raise, based upon the total current assessed valuation of all property within the West Valley School District, about $2 million a year, a little less than. Combined with the commitment of the school board to continue its long-running practice of designating $1 million plus either the state's inflationary index, what's called IPD, or the consumer price index, because going back to 2014, the first time that I sat through a budget where we committed $1 million, we've done the same thing. Our money is worth less. We should be adjusting, in my opinion, we should be adjusting that at least toward inflation, if not committing more money. In 3 years, if we do that and are successful, that will raise approximately $9 million to spend on this list, a defined list that we could put out to our community. That would be a binding vote. It would only take 50.1%. And where did I come up with the 40 cents? Well, if we defease 17 million, and why 17 million is we set aside $1 million for Apple Valley, and some of you, somebody spoke, I think it was Mr. Craig, on the finish off, and we wish we would have done on Apple Valley, and some of you, now that we've moved in, we've got $1 million fund for each one of them. So $17 million. The defeasance on that, it looks in the neighborhood of about 40 cents per thousand. Yes, I realize that probably doesn't make a material difference on any one individual taxpayer. But I come back to the plan that we ran on. It just doesn't feel right to spend this money. I get that we have the needs. It just doesn't, I just cannot get my head wrapped around it. And we come back to the community with that defined list. This is what we want to do. This is what we believe it's going to cost. And we start tackling these needs, and you come alongside for the right. 50.1%, that's the vote. And so to me, that checks a lot of the boxes. Is it perfect? No. Are we maybe, is there some risk? Absolutely. But if I'm going to say no to something, I want to try to be solutions oriented. And that's the best I've come up with to this point, to at least check most of the boxes, at least in my mind, about how we score the touchdown. Why 3 years? Because in approximately 2026, when the high school bonds fall off, according to our long-range facilities plan that Mr. Matthews talked about, we are going to need additional support when it comes to replacing a Tandem, when it comes to replacing Mountain View, when it comes to replacing the junior high in whatever format that we as a community determine that's going to be best interest. We're going to need that support again. So I feel like in the long range, this gives us our best opportunity to achieve all of those goals, not spending the money down at the risk of really creating what I feel are some things that are within our control that are unforced errors in the future. So thank you for listening. If anybody has any other and better suggestions, I'm certainly willing to listen, but I've given this a great deal of thought, and I've tried to come up with something that is not only going to address our needs, but seeks the binding vote of our community on the school district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thorner. So I will wrap up with my thoughts and comments. And much of what I'll say will echo a lot of things you may have already heard, but at least you'll hear at least what my perspective will be. First of all, I want to start out with talking about some things that we probably should all recognize, at least all my colleagues would probably agree to. I don't want to say I put words in their mouth, but I've heard some of these comments already, and I think that they make common sense to me. First of which, Apple Valley and Summit View should have some leftover money for contingencies associated with the constructions of those two schools. It just makes sense. The money was there for those schools. We should put some money aside, whether it's $1,750,000 or $1.5 million, whatever it is, we should put those funds aside for it. Second, I do believe that whatever or whenever we come up with future bonds or levies, we should address this issue right up front. What's going to happen with any leftover funds, or even if we fall short? We need to identify what we should do instead of getting to a situation where we're like this, where we can't make our minds up, or it's a difficult choice. And the part that bothers me the most is that there are some situations where you feel like you're going to make the majority of people very happy with what you do. In this situation, I don't feel that any of us up here feel that this is going to come out the best for any of us, because it's going to be a tough choice. We're going to get a big portion that want one thing and another portion that wants something else. So I think we need to identify what we're going to do up front with any money that potentially is left over in future bonds or levies. The other thing, I think many of us, they're not saying it directly, but maybe without putting words in their mouth, I think we need to try and avoid kicking the can down the road. I mean, it seems like we keep putting things off and off and off. And I'm talking about a lot of things. One lady there, I agreed with a lot of your comments. We keep putting those things off. They're still on the list. It frustrates me no end that we talk about athletics and football fields, which I feel is a strong builder of moral character in these kids, leadership skills, a lot of abilities, and some of these kids will advance. I mean, we've had a NFL championship win the MVP coming from West Valley School District, but we have trouble trying to advance athletics in a school district that has the resources to do it. And that baffles me and it frustrates me, because every time, again, it's kicking the can down the road. I want to see something done with these. And like Mr. Jager here, I do agree that when we talk about the track, the football field, both of those things need to be considered as one item. They should not be separated. Those are community things. People use those things. Every time I drive by or down Zero Road, I see families walking on the track on a Saturday or Sunday using it for their own enjoyment and recreation. Those things are community things and they belong to the community, so we should take care of them. I think some of the problems that we're dealing with in this particular issue, again, pleasant problems, but we never anticipated having this much money left over. There was no way to really predict. We thought we would have, I don't remember it being 9 or 10 million. I remembered 4 or 5 million because for those of you who are around, I was the one who kind of voted against not having, against not putting enough money into the 2 schools and making the gyms larger. Again, my theory, my belief, those are community gathering places, places where people come together and do things as families, as schools, as communities. And I think those things should be invested in. There are good arguments for both sides. There's no doubt about it. They're all good points of view. Where I think I'm going to wind up, and I haven't made my mind up. I'm kind of like Mr. Meyer here. I'm sitting on the fence a bit, is I would like a little bit more input from the community. So I kind of favor the idea of an advisory vote. I think it's not a bad idea to hear what people want. When I started out and wanted these community forums, one of the first things I said is we need to take a temperature check before we move forward. We need to know what people really want. Right now, I appreciate the fact that we have very concerned citizens that will attend these meetings, are here today, we're here at the last meeting, but this represents a fragment of the entire community. We need a vehicle for hearing from more individuals, more people, and know what they want. Perhaps the only way to do that is some sort of advisory vote. I don't know exactly what that will look like Mr. Thorner said here, but maybe we can simplify it down to 3 or 4 options, let people tell us what they think, see what that tells us. Maybe it doesn't give us the answers we want, and then we're back to square one amongst the 5 of us having to make a choice. But at least we will have reached out as much as we want, or as much as we can. For me, in the end, I will always vote for what I think is best for the school district, what is in the best interest. And I'm sorry, I will disagree with some of my friends when they say that if I were to do something different, it represents a lack of trust. That bothers me because I have always done what I thought is best for the school district. You may disagree with me, but I don't ever want you to doubt that I'm doing or voting for what I think will work best for our school district. I have kids in the district, like many of you, and I believe in the school district, so I'm going to vote for what I think is best for our school district overall. And then I think lastly, my closing comment would be, in going back to that concept of kicking the can down the road a little bit, I think it's time for us to recognize what's happening, what we are doing. That is what we are doing. Every time we get up here and we say we'd rather do this or do that or do something else with this, we're not really addressing those problems. So they get delayed. They get, quote unquote, deferred. And that's where that list comes from, deferred maintenance, those items that we seem to put money aside but don't ever get done. Just to share an experience with you, some of you know me, I do a lot of AAU basketball, and this past weekend I used one of the gyms at the school. Well, I went in the gym, we used the gym, and the valves wouldn't turn off in the bathroom. Simple things that could be done, but they're on that list for deferred things or things that don't get recognized. Simple things that could be done because we're putting money other places instead of taking care of some basic fundamentals, which we could do. I think we should do, and it's long overdue. So those are my points. And like I said, in the end, I'm always going to do what I think is best for the school district, like me or hate me, but that's the way I tend to look at the world. I'm going to do what I think is best. And I will say that each one of my colleagues up here, I'm sure, has the same motivation. They want to do what they think is best. And that's the beauty of the process here. That's why we wanted to open this up for the community so that everyone would be able to say what's on their mind and give us some input. And we recognize that, not everybody's going to be happy or it's going to work out perfectly, but we're going to do the best we can as a group. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you for everybody who was here tonight, who was here at the first forum. Your thoughts are very much valued, and you can continue to communicate with us through email. Send us your thoughts, your messages, and we will take them and use them to the best of our ability. So thank you again and have a good evening.